All right, Derek Piper. Illinois basketball has a new point guard, Niccolo Moretti. A little bit of a surprise. You guys are in Nebraska waking up to some news. What'd you think when you heard it?
You always love that. You love when the phone's buzzing and you're wiping the sleep out of your eyes and like,
what the hell does Warner want?
We got to get on this. But, it was a surprise. And not that his name hadn't come up because Illinois really liked him, watching him over the summer. They first, that being Brad Underwood and Jeff Alexander, spotted him at the Nike Global Academy, a bunch of international players on a showcase for college coaches, NBA scouts, and that whole kind of deal. And he really showed out there. And then Jeff, when he went out to Turkey at the end of July and into August to see Zachary Perrin, of course, but also Niccolo Moretti for Team Italy. And the point guard that can really shake and bake, that can be able to set up other guys, very good passer, good in pick and rolls. And there was actually at one point this summer that there was discussion of trying to potentially bring him in mid-year. And I know as they evaluated their own roster and saw that obviously Sky was very limited what he could do throughout the summer. Jaden was going through it with, how much can he play on the ball? Is he more of a scorer than a facilitator? Do we have enough pure playmakers on this team? So ultimately they wanted to evaluate him a little bit more, didn't feel the urgency to get that done. But obviously with Sky stepping away from the team and there's an opening now. And I think it is bigger than just this year. I think some people will be like, does he come in and does he play 15 minutes off the bench? As we've seen with Zach right now, it's a process to be able to get acclimated. And maybe it's not much this year other than an emergency option at point guard. But long-term, there is quite a bit to like because, as you can see here, the three-point shooting, the passing. He's reminded them some of kind of Andre Curbelo with his playmaking and just with more of a shot-making capability.
Yeah, Derek, this happens the same week Sky Clark takes a leave from the program, right? So how much is 1 and 1 equal 2 there, or was this independent of Sky Clark?
I don't think it's a coincidence. I'm not saying that they wouldn't still have interest of maybe adding him after the season. I think that their evaluation of Jaden and kind of how they want to use him is continuing to go throughout the rest of this season, and we'll see how much of a point guard he really is. I think he's made strides, obviously, since the summer where turnovers were an issue. They wondered about him getting other guys the ball and making other players better. I think he's making strides there. We'll see how the rest of this year goes. But in terms of, Sky, who was supposed to be a foundational piece in your backcourt, he exits the fold. And then Moretti comes in and is committing and now immediately taking a roster spot and a scholarship spot. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it does say quite a bit about, the possibilities of Sky returning. And that's just my take and kind of just the read on the situation. But I know we discussed usually when players, pack up their stuff and leave campus, they usually more likely than not don't come back. So I think that answers, in my estimation. We'll still have to see what Sky ultimately says here at a later date and what Brad ultimately says once Moretti gets announced, because that's the question that he's going to have to get asked is this a 1-for-1 trade? Does this mean Sky's not coming back? That would be my guess on it. But I think that they've liked Moretti, but now with Sky being outside of the picture, that it really amplified the urgency to get him and a chance to bring him in mid-year, because we know Brad likes that dynamic of, even if he's just thinking about next year, having a chance to rep him in practice, get him in the weight room. Those are all positives for development.
Yeah, I mean, we're speculating that, but it's fair speculation, right? It's putting all of it together, especially when you got Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn coming in, you got Moretti coming in, Jaden Epps already here. Makes some sense. Derek, what do you think is the value of bringing Moretti in early? You're bringing in Zachary Perrin early. This starting to be a trend of what Brad Underwood likes to do a little bit.
Right. I mean, he's talked in the past about the value of having guys come in mid-year or just even the sit-out transfers. Obviously, when we saw Jacob Grandison be able to sit out for a year and learn the system, develop, work with Fletch, and now for Perrin and both Moretti to, again, number one, they're emergency options. Like we talked about Zach, if there is foul trouble for Dane and Coleman, that you throw them out there a little bit. It's just kind of one of those, in an immediate sense, see how they handle practice, see how far they can progress here in a short time. And if they are in a position to help you, then great. But I think long-term it is being able to cut down the time of being able to get ready, because if they were to showed up, in June, which is the alternative of, not coming in early, but coming in after the semester, showing up in the summer. Then you got to work through a lot of stuff to acclimate them and do the teaching now, to the development now. Obviously, as soon for two guys that do need to add strength, that's working with Fletch as soon as possible is a big value too. So, and I know a big theme for this season is, the lack of cohesion going in. When you can have guys practice together and have a number that would be back, we think about Epps, Sincere coming back, Luke Goody, RJ. We never know the full scope of it until the off season hits and who's staying, who's going. But to be able to say we brought back 6, 7, 8 scholarship players, that's a lot different than what we saw this last season and or this current season. And I think that Brad would see a value in that as well.
Yeah, Dane Dange and Ty Rogers. That's a really good defensive group you can have coming back, but you do need some offensive playmakers. So how do you see Moretti fitting with that group? Because Coleman Hawkins, Terrence Shannon, I think we can assume will be moving on to the NBA. Matthew Meyer, we know, will be gone. How do you see Moretti fitting in, whether it's next season or the long term here?
I think it's just his ability to get guys shots. I know that, like I said earlier, very good in the pick and roll, or that's going to come out of like the 2-man game and the spread, or maybe they run some ball screen stuff. They haven't completely abandoned that. I know that we're seeing that some with Terrence. So the ability to have someone that can get into the teeth of the defense, be able to hit a roll guy, be able to spray it out to a shooter, those are things that he can do. I think the biggest things for me, I think his offensive skill set is going to translate to this level fairly quickly. It's just whether his defensive ability is going to be up to par early, because it's a guy that's not the best athlete. I mean, he is shifty and crafty and everything, but how well does he do guarding explosive guards, guarding physical guards? Because he is pretty slight in stature right now. So I think that weight room with Fletch, trying to maximize his athleticism, and then just knowing the system. So I think, and then again, I think as we go through the last 2 months of the Big Ten season, as we get into postseason play, where's Jaden Epps at in his development? At that stage going into next year, are you looking at it and saying, we want Jaden to be our starting point guard, and then we'll build around that? Do you say that maybe he is still more of a combo as a scorer? Brad obviously has played multiple playmakers before, and I wouldn't rule out. And I think it's still something we got to see how much movement there is after the season. I wouldn't rule out a transfer point guard. That being something that they would look at and trying to get a veteran piece in there when you're going to have Lawhorn and Moretti, who will be freshmen, and or we'll see if Moretti uses any eligibility this year. And then obviously Epps still being a sophomore.
Derek, this is another international guy. I wrote about it a little bit this morning. Brad Underwood had a roster of 6 in-state scholarship players, no international guys. Right now, I think you have 2 scholarship guys from Illinois, one a transfer in Terrence Shannon, the other Brandon Lieb. And during the Brad Underwood tenure, you've had 12 international guys. And I include Puerto Rico. I know it's a U.S. territory, but it's not one of the 50 states. They've had a lot of impact too. Obviously, Kofi, Georgie, Andres Felice. We're seeing it now with this roster. Jeff Alexander starting to get into Europe a little bit. What do you make of his international, impact there, and just how Brad Underwood is kind of using that market? Because we know it's a global sport now, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of talent out there, international hoop scene, and for Jeff to be able to further his connections. I know that he had some of those at Evansville, and had a big man whose name, I don't know if it escapes me or I can't pronounce it, but a big man from Lithuania that was really good at Evansville that he helped land. And then that has been furthered now with his ability to tap into the market to get Zach Perrin and to get more accustomed or familiar with guys that are influential in the international scene and show what Illinois is able to do. And like you said, the track record of number one, this is a really diverse campus. They have a lot of international students for them to show that they've pieced guys from different backgrounds, from different countries together before. And obviously it's a team that's winning and developing players. So I think that's a great thing to be able to have, just another talent pool to be able to dip into. And I know it's been a theme here for Brad Underwood throughout his tenure is like the ability to pivot, like the ability to have another answer, the ability to not just be in scramble mode. Like, well, I don't know what we're going to do now. And I think that really that clicked in for the staff when Chen and O left, and to be able to, all right, we're going to go get Chester and we're going to end up with Tim and promote Jeff. And once again, have a really good staff. Obviously, when we've seen players leave the fold too, or miss on a recruitment, be able to go out and get another guy. So this guy doesn't work out, at least up to this point, and we'll see if he he ultimately ever comes back. But to get a guy like Moretti, who's pretty talented and had some attention from other programs, that's a good thing to have happen. And I think that Jeff wants to just continue to even dive more into that international. And it's worked out for Gonzaga, Arizona. Some of those schools have done a great job in that venue.
Yeah, 3 of the 5 first-team NBA, All-NBA guys last year, all international guys as well.